Have you ever seen someone that looks exactly like you? What can seeing a double mean for your future? And could it prove an alternate dimension? Today, we test the believability of doppelgangers.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. It is Tuesday, literally. We're recording this on a Tuesday, which is not normal.
No, it's not, but that's your fault, so.
It is my fault. June itself is going to be very funky. I'm going to be in Savannah, Georgia sometime soon, so shout out if you're in Savannah. And then I'm going to be in North Carolina, and then I'm going to be melting, unless I just melt up here, because it is hot.
It's pretty warm.
It is hot.
In May, technically. About to be June.
This is the last moments of May.
Yeah.
But it's still spring, right? Or did summer officially?
I could not tell you. I
feel
think
like
it's the 21st.
Seasons on the calendar do not match up with seasons in the weather.
The equinox is something I find very fascinating. The winter equinox and the summer equinox. I wonder if I could do an episode on those one day. But I think it's very cool how it's always it's so paganistic. I think it's really neat.
I think you could definitely do an episode on that eventually. Like 500 episodes from now. When we're
724. The equinox
is grass really green? New conspiracy. Are birds real? We'll probably talk about that.
I actually have that written down.
But anyway, are you ready to dive into this topic, which we kind of covered before, Ben's episode, which is Doppelganger and the something.
Spirits and the Doppelganger.
Spirits and the Doppelganger, where Ben thought he saw his mom. Well, I'm not saying he thought that he saw his mom. He saw something, but we don't know if it was his mom, but it looked like his mom.
I am very excited to jump in this with you.
Let's go. So what is a doppelganger? Essentially, a doppelganger is a mysterious, exact double of you. And no, it's not like a twin where, you look identical, you're biologically related, but you have different personalities. This is like an unknown replica of yourself.
Unknown replica. That's a good phrase.
Descriptor?
Yeah.
Good band name?
Unknown. Actually, that's a really good band name.
How would you chant that? Unknown replica. Clap, 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 clap. Right?
I think it's kind of sporty.
Well, you can't, it doesn't have...
Unknown replica. Unknown replica.
There it is. Okay. That's good, actually. We'll have to work on that. But anyway, it is a unknown exact replica. It basically same appearance, same blemishes, same hair color, same demeanor, same mannerisms. This isn't twins who look the same, but Janet likes to watch comedies and Betty likes to watch reality TV. If this is your doppelganger, y'all like the same things.
Yeah, but
everything's the same.
There's like an uncanny valley situation about it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Which I'll set that scene, but that's a very good descriptor as well, because it's a little bit more known. I think uncanny valley is where you almost can't put your finger on it, but I think to the person, it gives you the same feeling in your stomach where something is just wrong. Something is just off. And it also comes to the point where it's like where your friends and family, if they encounter this doppelganger, they will believe without a shadow of a doubt that it was you. And it's not just like, oh, there's somebody that looks like Charlie. It's like, wait a minute, what's Charlie doing in France? I'm listening to him right now in my headphones, and he's hot, so he could be here, but I think he's in Ohio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they would message us and like, Charlie, I didn't know you were in Paris. And you're like, I'm not.
I've never left the country.
Exactly. And then, so it's like double confusion, because the person that saw you or saw the doppelganger is confused, and then you get questioned about things that you didn't do, and then you're confused. So it's basically a farce.
Interesting.
Right? You were in a flea in her ear.
I was in a flea in her ear, and I played the character Rugby. And farce is a good word for that.
That's
too.
When we had the huge set pieces, and it fell on my head, and I got a concussion.
I was like, "Can I go?" And the director's like, "I guess."
It was like 14-foot high wood. I remember I called the receptionist G-Dog.
You got knocked the out.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, we've discussed this loosely in a different episode, which you can listen to that interview on Patreon. But I think this is interesting because it's going to go further than that. We're going to deep dive, or as deep dive as we do on this podcast, into the idea of doppelganger.
About 12 feet.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's start 6 and we'll work our way down. We would be very bad for a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want to trust us.
But here's the thing. I think we're creatures of meaning. We don't just look at stuff and accept it. I think we try to extrapolate meaning in things that we experienced. And if there isn't inherent meaning, we try to slap it on it. So that's what I'm looking at. It's like, what does this mean? What does seeing a doppelganger mean? Why is it here? Not just the fact, like, I mean, essentially, if you want to know what it is, you could stop listening now because we already covered it. It's like a mysterious clone that is often known as kind of being like a harbinger of bad news. It's like, it's kind of considered a bad omen. Like, it's not like a good thing. It's not like I think you mentioned this recently. It's not like Parent Trap, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about Lindsay Lohan hanging out, switching places because, oh my God, I found my doppelganger. I'm going to go be rich. You go be a country girl. We're going to hang out with Han Solo Light. That's Dennis Quaid.
Oh. Okay, I have a question though.
Yeah.
Are they physical? Do they have corporeal presence? Or are they see-through? Are they, like, can you go through them?
Listen,
like spirits?
If you would have asked me that question before this episode, I would have said, I don't know, but I would have said 85% physical. I would have felt very comfortable in that. Right now, there are definitely encounters in here that we're going to be talking about that feel ghostly. So I don't know.
Okay.
I think there'll be people that tell you that they see doppelgangers that are very physical.
Yeah.
And are like just very much like real people. But then there's definitely ghostly disappearing. Like a lot of people say it disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of physical, I don't know. But spiritual, like ghost-like, I think you're going to find that in here.
Are they, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Are they ghosts or are they like spirits of like, are they demonic at all? Like, what's the presence behind them?
Typically bad.
Bad.
Typically bad. And I don't want to say demonic, because I feel like that's very specific.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider these demons or, demonic, anything like that. But it feels more than ghost. It doesn't just feel like a ghost, because if it is, where did it come from? You're alive, so why are you seeing yourself?
Is it jinn?
I don't think this is something you can put in a box that we've already done.
Okay. That's
I
cool.
think unless you go into the multiverse, because that's what I really like talking about in terms of this, is the idea that these are two duplicates from different dimensions that accidentally cross. But then again, there's theories about doppelgangers that don't fit that feels, here, let me put it this way. And I think I had this later in my notes, so if I repeat myself later, I apologize. I'm going off the cuff here. I got 6 theories about what a doppelganger might be. We got historical examples, and we have the best encounters found from, Reddit. But here's the way that I kind of mentally classify the different theories about doppelgangers, right? Intent. Some people describe doppelgangers in ways where it feels very intentful. Like they have a mission to cause harm, be mischievous, or they're like bad, like just a bad meaning. Where when you look at it more like the multi-dimensional, it seems less intentful. It seems more like wrong place, wrong time.
Right. Okay.
So that's the way I personally am breaking it up. But let me set the scene, because you might just be thinking you're at the mall and you see someone that looks like you and you're like, well, that's weird. Can be creepy. You ready for a scene?
Yeah.
All right. Set the scene. It's late. It's night. It doesn't have to be 3 a.m. A little cliche. Let's say 2:55.
Okay.
You wake up. Your throat is super dry. You decide to walk to the kitchen and get something to drink. Your eyes are heavy, so you're trying to keep them squinted, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Where you're afraid of becoming too awake.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta do something, but you don't want to become awake because then you have to struggle going back to sleep. So it's like, I'm gonna open the fridge just barely, grab a drink, grab some water, take a sip. But then your eyes look outside, look out your kitchen window, your eyes pop open because standing underneath the single street light by your house is your exact replica, your doppelganger. It's wearing your clothes. It's wearing your face. It has your favorite shirt, has your hair the same way you like to put it. You can't tell for certain because it's far away, but the sinking feeling in your stomach is telling you that the doppelganger is staring directly at you. And then it smiles. End scene.
Oh my gosh.
Creepy.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's not warm and fuzzy. So I will say this, because there's the intent, there's not intent, there's dimensional, there's mischievous, there's evil. I don't want to say demonic, but evil. But also, I think in some instances, it could be just mistaken identity. Just throwing that out there.
That's just a possibility.
Just gotta throw that out there.
All right.
But let's dive into a couple historical experiences, and then we'll get to the main theories, and then we'll get to the personal encounters. Alright, so we got 4 historical examples of doppelgangers. Yeah.
Are they
Question in the back.
Are they like deep history, or are they like just like modern history?
The deep history.
Like Rome?
It's short, but it's deep.
In 1894 or in 800 AD.
I do have it chronological, and we are starting in the year 1612. Is that far enough back for you?
I mean,
you know what? You're right. We go 12 feet deep.
Yeah.
So it was claimed that English metaphysical poet John Donne.
That's what I want to be when I grow up.
Was that what Don? It was Don John, not John.
Don John.
This is the opposite of what's his name. You know what I'm talking about?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Him, yeah.
That bad movie?
I didn't watch it. So.
That's fair. That
Scarlett
movie,
Johansson in that?
No way.
No, I'm asking you.
I have no idea. There's no way.
I think she was.
Really?
Hit us up, people. I think she was. But anyway, John Donne saw his wife's doppelganger in Paris in the year 1612. And as with many famous doppelganger sightings, misfortune strikes, and this night that he saw her happened to be the same night as the stillbirth of his daughter.
That's not funny.
No. So here's a snippet of the sighting and the encounter, which appeared in Life of Dr. Rizvan Rising, which was published in 1675.
Okay, so this is quite a few years later.
A couple years later. They had to sit on it. They're like, do I want to make a podcast? Do I make a YouTube series about it?
Pamphlet. They would have made a pamphlet back then. I'm serious. That was like the thing, was pamphlets.
They started chiseling it in stone. They're like, oh my God.
It's pretty old school.
I made a typo 4 chisels ago. I need Grammarly for my rock chiseling.
Granitely.
Granitely, yes. So in this book, it's a Sir Robert talking to Mr. Donne. I'm cutting the first section because it'll literally be like a minute and a half, and y'all do not want to hear it.
No one wants to hear that.
Okay. So I'm gonna just jump right in. So just meet me halfway, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Donne was not able to make a present answer, but after a long and perplexing pause, he did at last say, I have seen a dreadful vision since I saw you. I've seen my dear wife pass twice by me through this room, with her hair hanging about her shoulders and a dead child in her arms. This I have seen since I saw you. To which Sir Robert replied, Sure, sir, you have slept since I saw you, and this is the result of some melancholy dream, which I desire you to forget, for you are now awake. To which Mr. Donne's replied, I cannot be sure that I now live, than that I have not slept since I saw you, and am assured that at her second appearing, she stopped, looked at me in the face, and vanished. Unquote. So it's spiritual, right? To which I say, let's move on. So the second encounter is in the 1800s. So we're jumping up a couple hundred years. So the year is 1845, and this is Emily Sages.
Sages? Where's this at?
It is Latvia.
Oh, okay.
Is that how you say it? Latvia?
Latvia, yeah.
Okay, cool. So a young 32-year-old, so she's a young 32-year-old teacher in Latvia.
Yeah, she is. That's not old at all.
Yeah. And she's working in a French language private girls' school.
Okay.
And she's friendly. Everyone likes her. She's awesome. She probably, is easy classes, early recess.
Probably gives a lot of hall passes.
Yeah. However, things got to get really strange in Miss Saget's class when a double of her started appearing.
What?
One day, as she was writing on her blackboard with her back to the class, the teacher's doppelganger suddenly appeared in front of everyone and started awkwardly mimicking the teacher's movements.
Oh, that's so weird. It was awkward.
I don't like that. It's like clanky. It's like the mimic monster.
Yes.
Let's just turn this episode into the mimic monster.
The mimic monster. That's really creepy.
So then another...
It just appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's very ghost-like. Which, again, if you would have asked me before this episode started, I would have said, no, it's totally physical. It's a real person. Yeah, I don't know. And another experience she had a few days later, Miss Chage was eating in the dining hall and her doppelganger appeared again. She didn't say anything or interact with anyone, just, again, simply mimicking Miss Chage's movements. And from that day on, the sightings became more and more frequent. One summer's day in 1846, the entire student body of 42 girls sat in a hall having a sewing lesson. And as they worked, Miss Chage picked flowers in the school's garden. When the sewing teacher left the room to speak to a colleague, the doppelganger suddenly appeared in front of the room, staring straight at all of the terrified children and didn't do anything, just stood there and stared at them. So apparently, the teacher never saw her own doppelganger. It always was when her back was turned. But she did say that she would always have a very sick feeling, and she could sense its presence, even if she didn't see it physically.
Like eyes in the back of your head, like you feel like you're being watched.
Yeah, like she would just feel sick.
Yeah.
The color would drain from her face. She said she would also experience fatigue, which is interesting because I'm thinking, like, is it pulling energy from her?
Mm-hmm.
So what was her misfortune? She was fired.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, they were like, listen, you're freaking the kids out. It might not be you, but the other you is freaking the kids out, so you gotta go.
Because doppelgangers bring misfortune.
Yeah. Bad omens. Maybe she didn't like being a teacher, though. Maybe it's a positive thing.
Could be. That's a band. Bad
She's
omens.
like, oh, I hated having free summers. All right, so historical encounter number 3. Here's a gentleman you might have heard of before. Abraham Lincoln.
Who's that?
Only one of the best presidents ever.
Number 16, right?
Yeah, he's tattooed on my wife.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I don't think he had a tattoo of my wife, though. Didn't meet her halfway.
That's messed up.
So apparently, on the night of Lincoln's election, he was sitting on his couch, and he happened to glance in the mirror. And in the mirror, he saw his reflection, but then he also saw the face of another him.
No shit,
It looked
really?
just like him, but it was paler and more ghostly. Now,
Really?
obviously, he's like, what? So he stood up, and the moment he was off the couch, it was gone. Completely disappeared.
Whoa.
And supposedly, his wife believed that it was a sign that Lincoln would not survive his presidency.
Well, Mary Todd was crazy.
I'm
right?
not going into there, though, because, that's spoiler alerts on what happened, and we're not here about spoiling stuff. So our final historical example takes place in 1893, and it involves George Tryon.
Don't know him.
Nope. So, at a party, Vice Admiral Sir George Tryon was said to have walked through the drawing room, which we all have, of course, in our homes. But he didn't acknowledge anyone. He just slowly walked down the stairs, walked through the drawing room, didn't say anything, made his way to the door, and vanished going through the door. Expressionless, and he had that 1,000-yard stare on his face as he was walking. So why was this strange? Because he was not there. He was not physically there. He was on a ship in the Mediterranean.
Oh, wow.
And the misfortune is that his ship collided with another ship, sank, and George Tryon died with that ship at sea.
Oh,
So
my God.
this is ghostly. Like, this is very much ghostly.
Yeah.
So now let's get into some theories, superstitions, and ideas on what doppelgangers really are. Listen, guys, I know it's been a minute since I've talked about trying to get to 8% body fat, but that deadline is coming up.
I've been hitting the gym too and trying to get in better shape as well.
And that is why we've both been trying AG1 Athletic Greens.
I started taking AG1 because with my other, quote, protein powders, I wasn't seeing results.
Exactly. But with a single scoop of AG1, you're getting 75 high-quality minerals, vitamins, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics.
Well, that's fine, but let's talk about the real selling point. It actually tastes good and isn't all grating like some of the other protein powders.
My suggestion, just add it to your routine, right? Like, you wake up, start listening to that new Believing the Bizarre episode while you're making your AG1, and before we even start diving into the topic, you've consumed a shake that has less than 1 gram of sugar, supports mental clarity and alertness without any nasty chemicals.
So essentially, it's like a life hack. And don't just take our word for it, Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews. And on top of all that, for every purchase, Athletic Green donates to organizations that help get nutritious food to kids in need, like No Kid Hungry.
Skip the supplements and the dozens of various pills. You can reclaim your health and arm your immune system with daily nutrition. All it takes is just 1 scoop of AG1 and a cup of water every day. That's it.
Still on the fence? To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase.
That's right. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging.
Again, that is athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right, so here are 6 theories, ideas, superstitions. This is pulled from bustle.com.
Okay.
So if anything is offensively inaccurate, you know the source. Hit them up, right?
Yeah.
And some of this is obviously going to be repetitive, but isn't it like the more you hear things, like it's like when you learn something and you forget it, it's like 30% more easy to learn it again.
I didn't know that?
I think so. Anyways, I'm drilling this in your head.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Number 1, seeing your doppelganger is like a omen of death.
It's
right?
like an omen of being bad.
It's bad news bears.
Yeah,
As we've touched on multiple times in this episode, doppelgangers can be harbingers of bad news, misfortune, death, obviously with the child and George Tryon and Abraham Lincoln. And this is something you brought up. It was in my notes here, but you brought it up, but it feels very ghostly.
Yeah, it does. I can see that. Some of them, you definitely can make that case.
Absolutely. And then it's like, if you see your doppelganger, get ready for some Final Destination shit.
Yeah, like the Pokemon, if you will let me, Absol is a harbinger of death or disaster. Kind of like the cryptid Mothman, a harbinger of something bad happening.
Mm.
I wonder if people in Point Pleasant saw a lot of doppelgangers before the bridge.
There's just like, it's not like it was a joke, but I was going to mention like maybe during the Black Plague, everybody was seeing doppelgangers everywhere. But yeah, it's like there's like a very nice, happy moth. That's like, geez, what's this guy's deal?
Oh.
And then the plane went down. Or not the plane,
the bridge.
Then the bridge went down.
Yeah.
No, but I get what you mean, because the area suffered a misfortune, so maybe people are seeing doppelgangers. Mm-hmm. It's like the traffic jam was actually the same cars coming on the other side of the bridge at the same time.
Yeah.
The doppelgangers are like, wait a minute. No, wait. And then they went too. 2, doppelgangers give malicious advice.
Do they?
So beyond doppelgangers being a warning sign of death, apparently they can also interfere with your day-to-day life and decision-making by offering bad advice. This comes down to some people's beliefs that doppelgangers are an evil twin that are dead set on making your life miserable. They purposefully give you information in a malicious way because it's going to be misfortunate and you shouldn't be doing it. They're like, buy crypto. But yeah, they might just plant sinister ideas in victims' minds. I don't have an example of that, but that's what some people say. This is in the some people territory. 3, if someone else sees your doppelganger, it means you might be very sick. So if someone saw my doppelganger, then I might be getting sick.
Okay.
It's a reflection on me, not the person witnessing the doppelganger.
Right, like you should go, if I saw your doppelganger, you should go to the doctor and get a full MRI.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's like someone saw everybody on the bridge's doppelganger. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, they're all doomed.
Yeah. 4, your doppelganger is a ghostly double that lived before you. I'm not educated enough to speak to this. This is pulled directly from here. And you, how much do you know about Norse mythology?
Oh, a fair amount, actually.
Do you know about a Vardoger?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Do you know how to say it?
I think you're pretty close, actually.
I said it 2 completely different ways. Vardoger. But apparently seeing a Vardoger in Norse mythology is similar to deja vu, but it's in reverse. So instead of seeing something that triggers something else, or like you see something real that triggers something not real. You see something not real, but it leads to the real. And I'll explain. It's like if you see a doppelganger first, but then the real person comes second.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So
Yes.
seeing the real person triggers the deja vu to the doppelganger, which was not real, or at least supposedly in this case, not real.
So the doppelganger comes first.
Yes.
Okay, so it's like, what if it's from like a timeline that happens just like a minute before ours, and you see that happen?
Yeah, like you see somebody walking down the street and you notice something about them, like their coat. Like, oh, that's a cool coat. I bet it's Louis Vuitton. And then 5 minutes later, or a minute later, you see the same person walking by the same exact way, same hair, same coat.
But how does that fit into like Captain Griswold, the dude from...
Oh, Tryon?
Yeah, Tryon. How does that fit into Tryon, who died?
There's no way that all of these are going to fit every experience we talk about.
Oh, okay, good to know.
That, like, this isn't gonna be, like, one theory is gonna perfectly explain every encounter.
Okay, because there's no way that could explain that one.
No, because it would almost be, now, if you take it face value, because the way that this is broken down is they're using the theory that your doppelganger is a ghostly double, and they're using that in a way extrapolating it from the Norse mythology. But if you take it at face value, your doppelganger is a ghostly double that lived before you. Maybe something about it causes the ghost you to be seen when the real you is dying.
Okay.
So maybe in the exact moment that he walked through the drawing room,
yeah,
was the exact moment that the ship was getting sunk.
So
it's like his death brought the ghostly double to the surface.
I know in Norse, so the thing you're talking about, it's kind of like part of your spirit that lives outside of you. So that makes kind of sense.
Okay. Here's another one I can't properly speak on, but I'm gonna just touch on it.
I love when you do.
It's the idea that a doppelganger is your spiritual double. According to Bustle, they said, according to ancient Egyptian myths.
I like how you put it on them.
The doppelganger is basically the same as a ka, a K-A.
Uh-huh.
A ka is thought of as a spiritual double born in everyone. So when someone dies, their spiritual double lives on as long as they have somewhere to be in usually that person's body. And I, like I said, I don't want to put words in mouths of researchers and people that know what they're talking about. But apparently this is part of the reason why Egyptians mummify their dead, because it keeps the body from decomposing so that the spiritual double has somewhere else to live.
Okay, so kind of like Professor Binns from Harry Potter. He was a teacher, right? He died, but he kept getting up every day because he had a class to teach.
Which movie are we in? Which book are we in?
He's in all the books.
Okay.
None of the movies.
I read the books, but it's been a minute.
But he's a ghost, right? He was a teacher, he died, and then the next day he got up to go teach his class, and he's been doing that forever.
Got bills to pay for.
He's got ghost bills to pay.
Do we have to keep him on payroll?
I think Dumbledore got the better deal of that. Yeah.
I agree. But so the idea is that if the body decays, then the spiritual double will also die. So that person will have no chance at eternal life, even if they're not the soul or the spirit that gets to experience it.
Okay.
6, and this one is my favorite. It is a sign of an alternate universe, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that the doppelganger would represent a parallel universe that's moving alongside ours, and everything in that world or that universe is replicated in another dimension. So seeing a doppelganger would be that moment where there's just like a little bit of a crossover where you experience that other dimension.
I really like that idea. Like, bring it back to like a trifold?
Tryon.
Bring it back to him. Yeah, bring it back to him. It's like he was, like his ship got like delayed, or like his orders were different. So he didn't go to the Mediterranean. He stayed home, went to the party.
Yeah, he was like, wait, you're going to get shrimp cocktail? Like, I can stick around for a couple more days. I didn't get a chance to research the crash. I did look into a little bit more. I didn't put anything in my notes. But one thing I said, or one thing I saw that I thought was very interesting was that it was almost bizarre how he led his ship into a different ship. Because it's a ship collision. Like his ship collided with another ship. Yeah. And the way that I read about it, it almost seemed like it was intentional, which is weird. Like, it caused, I think, over 300 deaths. Like,
there's so many, it's like there's no road, like, could have gone anywhere.
But his ship had his left turn signal on. But I like this idea because it's also like the butterfly effect. So, like, what if, because you know how they're like, the doppelganger brings misfortune, or at least it signals misfortune.
Right.
Like, what if, like, the butterfly effect, like you have all these major decisions around you, all life-altering moments, And when you get closest to one that is going to massively impact your life is somehow when your life is, in your dimension, is incredibly close to another dimension. Now you could argue, like, why wouldn't that be the case for good things? Like, if you win the lottery and win $15 million, why wouldn't you see a doppelganger then? But maybe tragedy and misfortune carries a different type of long-lasting energy.
Maybe it's a heavier emotion, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels, sadness feels less fleeting than happiness.
I agree.
In certain instances. But I don't know, I just think I don't think there's an answer to it. I just think it's the most interesting one to me. I think it's fascinating.
I like it a lot.
So now, let's get to the meat. Let's get to the part everybody really cares about. The heavy hitter, the experiences from Reddit. Alright, I got 4 encounters from Reddit regarding doppelgangers. Are you ready?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
The first story is called The Doppelganger in the Woods. Quote, "This happened many years ago. I was a teenager, hanging out with my brother and his friend, and we lived in a rural area. We got bored, as teenagers often do, and decided to ride our bikes through a wooded area to check out a nearby stream. Heavy rain had passed through earlier in the day, so we were curious to see if the stream was fast flowing. We got to the stream and chilled for a few hours. In the afternoon, we decided to head back. My brother and friend jumped on their bikes, and they started riding ahead of me. I got on my bike, and I had a really strange feeling, like I was being watched. I couldn't shake it. I scanned the trees around me, when suddenly, someone leaned out from the side of a large tree, no more than 25 feet away from me. They had a big, unnatural grin on their face. But then I realized this person was me. I was staring at another me, grinning at me from behind a tree. I was frozen. I wanted to yell, but I was so confused and terrified and no words would come out. I remember the terrible feeling of dread that washed over me. While I was riding, I kept blinking, rubbing my eyes, and then the apparition vanished. I rode like hell back home, and I don't think I slept for a week. I went back to the stream a few more times, but nothing like that has ever happened again. The logical part of my brain wants to say that maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, but the part that remembers what happened, how clear it was, and the feeling of absolute terror and confusion will never let me just push this memory aside." Unquote.
That feels like fairy folk kind of stuff.
Now I don't believe it.
Oh, come on. You, really? It's in the woods?
What part
trying
of
to trick
Faye
you?
is seeing a duplicate?
September 1978. Serial killer Rodney Alcala appears on The Dating Game.
February 1994, 34 hospital workers are exposed to an unexplained toxic lady.
March 2022. Experian emails a Los Angeles podcaster about a mysterious credit score change, completely unjustified.
Wait, did we cover that?
I mean, we could have. I said it was mysterious.
Okay, we're Ghost Town, and we cover true crime, paranormal, and other weird history.
The Cult of Capital One.
But here's one more date. July 2018. A trailer drops for a new podcast called Ghost Town. Over 300 episodes later, we've covered everything from the Los Feliz murder house to the Noid.
Ever hear of the Tetris murders or the Denver Spider-Man or the underground satanic magazine Tuesday's Child?
Didn't think so. We've got stories you won't hear anywhere else by 2 writers, producers, and comedians.
We're LA 4s, but Wisconsin 7s.
Hey, I'm from Wisconsin. Oh. I'm Rebecca Lieb.
I'm Jason Horton.
And this is Ghost Town.
Available every Wednesday and Friday.
Pause the podcast you're listening to right now and subscribe to Ghost Town.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
You're a Wisconsin 8.
They're trying to trick you.
Alright, number 2. Quote. Oh, this is called Clone of Best Friend.
I wonder what it's about.
Quote. Guys, I am freaking out. I've been thinking about this for hours, and I can't stop. This happened maybe 10 hours ago. I don't know if the story is exactly a glitch, but I felt weird during all of it. So I made plans to go shopping somewhere in another city with my boyfriend. I was in my hometown, waiting at the bus stop. After about 25 to 30 minutes of waiting, this girl who looked exactly like my best friend comes out here waiting at the same bus stop. I thought it was strange that she came to my hometown for seemingly no reason. She lived about an hour away, and is supposed to be in a college class right now. But I was convinced it was her, the same way that you would feel if you saw your best friend. So I went up to her, obviously. I shouted out her name eagerly, and I went in for a hug. This girl looked absolutely horrified. She was not her, apparently, even though she had the same hair color, skin complexion, height, clothing style, body type, and even the same freaking voice. I can't explain it. I was scared and freaked, so I just told her I must have mistaken her for someone else and quickly scurried away so that I could wait somewhere else. I texted my friend asking if she had any relatives that looked a lot like her, or maybe an identical twin sister who was separated at birth, who might have been waiting at the same bus stop in my small hometown. But she said no, she only had a brother that kind of resembled her. No identical twin that she knows of. I'm not sure what happened today. My boyfriend can't think of an explanation either. The thing is, I felt extremely uneasy seeing her before even talking to her, and I don't know why. Unquote.
Oh, wow, that's so... But, okay, so she touched her.
Yes,
she didn't
it was
vanish.
physical. It was physical. And this legitimately seems like a mistaken identity, because it's like, you freaked the doppelganger out. I think this feels like a mistaken identity. If this was me, though, with my anxiety and my mental state, I would never approach anyone ever again. If I saw you at Big Bird, Giant Eagle, I'd text you, Charlie, are you a Big Bird right now? And you'd be like, yeah. Like, okay. Hey, Charlie, what's up, dude? You're like, why don't you just come say hi? Doppelgangers.
Doppelgangers. Of course.
All right. Number 3, the garden doppelganger. Maybe this is your fairy, Charlie. If any of these stories have anything to do with fae, which they don't, this would be the one closest to it.
I wouldn't say they don't.
Quote, I was 18 and living in a big house in a small village with my mom. We had a large garden with a designated area for our 8 rabbits.
That's what's up.
Every evening, we would go take turns to feed the animals before it got dark. However, this particular evening, we arrived home late, so it was already darker than usual. We agreed to feed the rabbits together because it was really creepy in the garden alone at night. I went to the bathroom and told my mom that I would meet her out there in just a couple of minutes. When I was finished in the restroom, I went straight into the garden where I heard my mom call, Jess? As she heard the door close behind me. I answered, yeah, and I saw her upper body pop up from behind the trampoline to make sure that it was me. There were no outside lights, but the combination of the moon, stars, and the distant low light of the motorway was enough to illuminate the area to be able to see at least kind of clearly. I was only around 10 meters from her, so I could see her face and her very distinct curly blonde hair. She said, okay, and bent back down behind the trampoline to continue feeding the rabbits. I looked down at the grass as I made my way to the bottom of the garden to make sure I didn't step in any holes that we dug out or that the rabbits dug out. As I made my way down, I spoke to her about how naughty one of the rabbits was acting that day, and it took me no longer than 7 seconds or so to get to that area. As I approached behind the trampoline where the rabbits' hutches were, I looked up and I expected to see my mom standing there just as I had seen and spoken to her just a few minutes earlier. But she wasn't there. I looked around for a few seconds, thinking that maybe she was hiding in order to give me a playful scare, when to my horror, I heard the back door of the house close. I looked up quickly, and I saw my mom walking out into the garden. I immediately speed-walked up the garden towards her so fast, which is absolute terror in my eyes. She asked me what the matter was, and I explained to her. She looked at me wide-eyed and assured me that she had been in the kitchen getting her shoes on. She's not skeptical at all about these kinds of things, and the look on my face, she could tell that I experienced something terrifying, so she believed me right away, and we both were very nervous, and we walked together down to the rabbits. I don't know who or what I spoke to my garden. Maybe it was a glitch in the Matrix, and my mom from another timeline appeared to feed my rabbits. I don't know. Or maybe there's darker forces at work that night. I read a little bit about doppelgangers and how some people recognize them as warnings of death. Not long after that incident, half of my rabbits dropped dead within a few days of each other. Unquote.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
That's creepy. That reminds me the most so far of Ben's story.
Yeah.
We talked with Ben and Spirit and Doppelganger.
Okay.
It's also the mom. Just creepy.
That was in Europe somewhere, I presume.
Yeah, just based on the language.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a long one. A little bit of a long one. But this is our fourth story. And this one is called My Ex Saw My Doppelganger.
Okay.
Quote, for the sake of context, I'll start out by saying that when I was in my late teens, I used to live in a small town outside Hamburg, not far from my girlfriend at the time. We used to spend a lot of time together, go for a lot of walks, as neither one of us had cars. Every few days, I would walk her to driving school up the road. Her classes got out pretty late, and it was winter in Germany, so the days were very short and it got dark very early. And I used to hate when she would walk there alone. After dropping her off at her classes, I always tried to be there to walk her home. I would simply depart after dropping her off and return after the duration of her class. But this is where shit gets weird. One particular evening, I dropped her off as normal, only about a 20-minute walk, traversing a quiet wooded park and a few short side streets to get there. I left to go back home for an hour or so, then left early so I could catch her before she left. For some reason, I arrived especially early this time, and I had to wait outside for about 20 minutes. It was super dark, and I was just sitting at the bus stop across from the street of the school. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and she just wasn't leaving the school. I sat outside for probably 35 minutes just waiting there. At this point, I of course started to think, did she leave already? I must have missed her. She could have finished by now. After about 40 minutes, I started contemplating heading back the way I came to see if she was walking alone. But I didn't want to risk it just in case she hadn't actually left, so I just kept waiting there anxiously. So, I'm waiting there, I'm tapping my foot, and I see two people with flashlights walking up the street in the opposite direction, looking for someone. I'm like, what is going on? I got up and approached to see what was going on. The two people searching were my girlfriend, who I was waiting for, and her mother. And as soon as they saw me approaching, they said, there you are. We've been looking all over for you. Where the hell have you been? And what are you doing back here? I said, what do you mean? I've been here for 40 minutes waiting for you to leave the school. Where did you guys come from? What's going on? She said, I finished early today and started walking back alone. I wasn't able to contact you, but because he doesn't have a phone, I guess he says. But I saw you following me. Why are you back here now? This isn't funny. I was dumbfounded. What are you talking about? I've been here for 45 minutes straight. So, this is what my girlfriend experienced from her perspective. After leaving slightly early from her class, she started walking back home after noticing that I hadn't arrived to pick her up yet, assuming that she would bump into me on the way. She wasn't really worried about walking alone and felt pretty good about things. She spotted me about 500 meters away and witnessed me crossing the street, which I had actually done while walking toward the school. But she expected me to approach her and greet her, but it seemed that I didn't notice her across the street, and we ended up walking right past one another. This was the last time that she actually saw me before meeting me again at the bus stop. Regrettably, I used to be a prankster. I would always tease and mess with her, so she assumed that's exactly what I was doing then, that I was intentionally ignoring her so that I could sneak around and scare her from behind. I don't know. Either way, she didn't call my name because she thought I was just being a jerk. But after she saw me initially, she kept walking towards home, expecting me to jump scare her or whatever. But she began hearing footsteps behind her, about 10 meters away. She knew it was me just going to mess with her. So she looked back, and she did see me following her in my exact outfit, walking exactly how I walk, just following her and staring at the ground. According to her, it was my exact face, hair color, and physical demeanor. To her, it was beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was me following her. This doppelganger said nothing, never looked up, and kept a consistent 10 meters behind her. He followed her just a few minutes down the road. She, of course, turned forward again and laughed at my supposed pathetic attempt to scare her. But after a amount of time, she started getting weirded out and wondered what the hell I was doing. Shortly thereafter, the footsteps stopped and she lost me around a bend in the road. She looked back confused, and then she finally called my name, but to no avail. She shrugged and continued walking through the wooded park back home. It was a quiet, dark, and creepy park, but she powered through it. About halfway through the small park, she heard footsteps again, but they were much faster and much heavier. She turned around again to see me sprinting towards her at full tilt. She saw my eyes glaring into hers like I was staring into her soul. At this point, she was majorly freaked out. She didn't know what the hell was happening, and I was apparently booking it straight towards her. As the doppelganger got about 10 meters away, he turned and ran down a different path in the park, running towards a non-lit, pitch-dark section of the park, sprinting as fast as he could. She watched as I sprinted into the darkness and faded from view. The immense confusion sparked worry in her. She was almost home and thought maybe I was running to meet her on the other side of the park. Also, she just genuinely wanted to get the hell out of there. So she arrived home and asked her mom if I had arrived, and sure enough, I never did. She told her mom the whole story, and they began to worry something was wrong. They waited a few minutes, then decided to look around for me. When their attempts failed, they thought to go back to the driving school again, and that's where they found the real me at the bus stop. And that's the whole story. I've heard that doppelgangers are omens of death, but lately I've been thinking maybe it was some elaborate glitch or some kind of intersection of universes. Unquote.
So it's interesting it took place in Germany, where doppelgangers were named from.
That's true, the double walker.
Yeah. And I don't know if there was a bad omen for that story. There wasn't really anything bad came of it.
Not told in the story, though. You know what I mean? It's like we only got a snapshot into
That's true.
Who knows how long after this happened they wrote about it on Reddit.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that feels more like a glitch in the Matrix to me.
Maybe the misfortune is they broke up, because he did say my ex.
I think it's probably some other issue there.
But that is our story on doppelgangers. Let's get to the discussion. So now is the time that we like to stop the episode and take a quick moment to thank our patrons, and especially our newest patrons. As of the moment of this recording, which is way earlier than normal, so be it, we would like to thank Nikki, Aaron, Alice, and Kylie, who literally joined while we were recording.
Yeah.
Good timing.
It was like right, like we were right there.
Yes.
It was really close.
You just slid in home. You kind of stole home.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty sweet. Charlie, tell the listeners what they can expect to get when they join our Patreon.
Well, I'll tell you what. Some things that they get are interviews, they get games, they get quizzes, that's game. But another kind of game is Do You Believe the Bizarre? Which is a fun story game where producer Ben, tells us 3 stories. We have to guess which one he wrote. And it's much more challenging than that sounds. And something else, what we're about to do tonight, is a social media response, which is where we take all those posts that we put on social media, the ones that ask you questions, and we respond to those, tell you our thoughts, and we talk about what people said. And that is a really interesting conversation piece that we have on Patreon.
And you get a shirt that you can only get on Patreon if you join our dedicated tier. Among many other things, we list literally everything about the tiers. So if you are enjoying the podcast, you want extra content, you want a little bit more of that bizarre in your day-to-day life, go check out our Patreon. That said, let's get back to the discussion. Alright, Charlie. So we got doppelgangers, we got bad omens, we have ex-girlfriends. What are your thoughts?
Every time you say Bad Omens, I think of the band.
Bad omens?
Yeah, they're really cool. You probably like them a lot, actually.
Alright.
But I love this topic. I think this topic is one of my favorite paranormal things that happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they are. I don't know if it's paranormal. I don't know if it's evil. I don't know if it's neutral. I don't know if it's just like dimensions colliding.
Yeah.
But I like all the theories.
That is one thing that is very exciting about the topic, is that it's very difficult to put it in a category or put it in a box, because it's kind of how you come and look at it. It's like, do you see it as malicious, or do you see it more as just like random things happening in our world that we can't control?
But also, it could be all of those things at once, which I think is interesting because you have those events like it's just some guy walking and he vanishes, or it's a doppelganger poking its head up saying your name and saying okay and going back to what it's doing. And then there's those moments where you can like actually hug them and talk to them, and then although I think that one's probably a misidentification. But you know what I mean? Like, they can be physical, they can be spiritual, but I think the most compelling ones are where they're not actually there.
Yeah, I think it's just the lens you look at it through, and I think there's probably entities being miscategorized. I think probably as a doppelganger.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's different. Some might just be ghost. I mean, what if that was the ghost of George Tryon instead of his doppelganger?
Right, like maybe he died before that happened.
Yeah, which I don't know how his spirit got back, but you know,
well,
I can't.
Maybe that's where he is attached to. That's where he's anchored, because that's where his everything is.
So I have a theory, and I want to know your thoughts on this.
Sure.
So let's go to the feeling, because you had mentioned uncanny valley, which I think is definitely valid. I think if you see yourself, like, you might see somebody that looks like you, or you might get told you look like Jason Bateman, but or Seth Rogen. Yeah, for us, respectively. But like, okay, let's say that the physical appearance doesn't give you that ill feeling. What could be causing that feeling? And I have a theory. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What if it's the attack on the self?
Attack on the self.
Yeah, so people have an ego. People like feeling special. People like feeling unique, right? Like, even if you don't care, even if you don't want the limelight, even if you're an introvert like us, you want to feel unique, you want to feel special, you want to feel like an individual, right?
Absolutely.
When you see and even if you're a twin, it's different because that's just somebody that physically looks like you. You're your own identity. Mm-hmm. But when you see a doppelganger, it almost removes your identity. It almost removes your specialness and your uniqueness. And maybe in the moment you see it, you don't have the opportunity to rationally think that through, but you feel it.
Yeah.
It's like if you're in a box of crayons and you're the only red and every other crayon is blue and green and orange and you're the only red, you're like, yeah, I'm special, whatever. But then you get put in a bin and there's another red crayon and it's just like, you can't explain it. And that's a really bad analogy. But it's just the idea that, like, there is something else out there that is exactly like me.
That analogy makes a lot of sense, actually. I think that's pretty good. Because you're right. It takes your specialness, your burnt umber, and then you see another burnt umber, and it's like, how could that be?
Yeah, it's just questioning existence. Almost like, think about animals that fight and they like reproduce to make their species exist and continue on. It's like seeing a doppelganger makes you question your value or existence, and if the doppelganger is trying to replace you, it makes your existence in jeopardy. Yeah,
like the kid in the woods.
Yes,
with that thing that's staring at him.
Yes.
That is probably the scariest story for me.
There's like that internal fear that this thing is trying to replace you.
Yeah, like, why is it smiling? Because what did you said a long time ago? There's something really scary about something copying you, but doing it poorly.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's like the mimic monster. Like you're talking about. I think that's interesting, and that's just a theory out of nowhere. But really, and I think mistaken identity is a possibility. I think ghosts are a possibility. But I love the idea that it's like this glitch in the matrix, or this like collision of parallel universes, or like a sneak peek into an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's one thing if you happen to see the doppelganger and it doesn't know. Like, I feel like for the dimension thing to work, both sides have to be unaware. The little kid, or not, I don't know why I think a little kid, he's a teenager. We're old, but you know, like the teenager smiling at the kid. Yeah. On the bike. That doesn't feel dimensional.
No.
That feels like an entity that is very aware of its surroundings and knows what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Where even the guy walking behind the girl feels intentional, but it almost is like somebody trapped in a place that they're not meant to be.
Yeah, I don't know, that feels less intentional than the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't, if in an encounter where they both seem aloof, I think dimensional works, but in some of these where it just seems the intent is so high.
Malevolent and scary.
Yeah, it seems like it's something else. Unless the dimensional thing isn't a doppelganger and entities on Earth that know they're on Earth and know who you are and know what they are is a doppelganger, unless those are just two different things.
Well, also, let's bring back to Ben's mom. Yeah. From the story. I think that's an entity.
It knew. It knew. That was it was not a mistake. As soon as he said something and she walked backwards, very creepy. So where on the believability scale do you rate doppelgangers and their existence in this world?
With the amount of witnesses and stories and historical backings, I have to say believable. There's too much evidence of people seeing other people that I cannot say it's not believable.
I give it a viable just because I think
Shut up, Todd.
It slips through the cracks in ways where it's not easily definable, which I love. Me as a person, I love. It's just hard to say because I think like in the amount of historical and personal encounters I told today, we could have 5 different entities. We could have 3 different entities. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think everything we talked about today was a doppelganger, even though it's being lumped by the internet, the great internet, which Elon Musk is probably going to own soon. You know what I mean? Like, it's all lumped under doppelganger, but it almost feels like a miscellaneous junk drawer.
That smiling thing. I don't think that's a doppelganger.
But
I think
it's a mimic monster.
Yes.
Let's create the mimic monster and put that lore out there. So then other podcasting, like today, we're going to talk about
the mimic
monster. Like, we know where that came from. And y'all will too. So that is our episode on doppelgangers. It's hot. It's very hot up here. It's Tuesday.
That's going to be the continuous chant for
at
the whole
least
summer.
Like 3 months. Yeah, it's like
we're hot up here. Like, we know, shut up.
Like, stop. Like, get a fan. God damn. But anyway, that is our episode on doppelgangers. I hope you found it interesting. I hope it sparked some ideas and thoughts and curiosities in your membrane. I hope I am sweating. It is hot.
Yeah.
But that's okay because if you're hot and you want to let us know about it, you can comment that on our Apple reviews and leave a 5-star and say, "Aw man, that's great." Or save yourself the time and energy of typing and just go to Spotify and leave a 5-star. You don't have to say anything.
Absolutely. And also, if you want to see more from us, you can do a couple things. You can go on our YouTube and watch our extra stuff on YouTube. And also, there will be streaming on YouTube. Tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming, but this isn't going to come out in time for that.
But you'll still be doing it.
I will still be doing it.
Charlie's doppelganger will be doing it.
No, I'm definitely going to be doing it. And there's also going to be some extra stuff on Patreon. Always extra stuff on Patreon. And we're getting closer to our stretch goals. The first one, 175, we're bringing back theatrical readings. Again, if you're a writer, someone who likes to write, hit us up in DMs. Either on probably Instagram or an email. Hey, I'm interested in writing. We'll give you the details. And it's a paying gig. We're going to actually give out money for this.
And also, if we get to 200 patrons, then Charlie is going to get an ever-permanent, long-lasting, Believing the Bizarre tattoo.
I love the thesaurus you broke out to describe this tattoo.
It's going to be so great. I'll probably live stream it and turn it into a vlog. I was
hoping you would do something like that.
But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for giving us the time of day. And I hope you have a great day. And as always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre,
a podcast as bizarre as you are.
We're going to be talking about 8 theories. 6. It's 6 now. I cut some. Some didn't make the cut. Sorry. Just like Michael Jordan, sometimes you don't make the cut.